I wonder if this should have like bumper music or an intro or something, some background music or whatever, but who knows? I guess if you're really good at guitar riffs, shoot something over because I'm over here just talking into a microphone and I'm not a good talker. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was Cocodona. So just got done with that 250-mile race, and well, actually, I just got done going to the doctor. So that race was pretty hard. I'm working through a bit of an Achilles issue, but guess we'll get into that. I think this is going to be that full encompassing Cocodona recap episode where I walk through every step. So buckle up. This baby's going to be over 68 hours long. Just kidding. There's no way I can talk that long. One of the reasons I'm even doing this podcast is because I live alone and, I want to get to be gooder at talking. So first off, just hit that like and subscribe, 5-star review just before you get any deeper into this episode, just because I don't want you to be judging this episode too much. I'm less than a week removed from 250 miles of frying my brain in the desert. So let's really bump those numbers up with subscribe and 5 stars. All right, let's dive into this guy. So it was my 4th year doing Cocodona. It was a year I was pretty prepared to do really well, but that also meant beating a lot of pros. There was, 7 or 8 other pros in this race, and it was gonna be pretty competitive out there. So I go to bed. It's nice and windy. The wind is flapping our tent. The stars are shining bright. We are camped in the beautiful Black Canyon City. And then I drift off to sleep. I'm ready to go. I finally have a good night's sleep going into a Cocodona. That has not happened previously, and I didn't take that lightly. I woke up around 3:50 and I was ready to go. The alarm was set for 4:10, I think, but I didn't need those extra 20 minutes. The mind was dialed and the body was ready to use the bathroom, much like every morning. So I went over to the line of porta potties and I saw a massive line. I wasn't sure what the line was for yet, but I figured it was going to be for the porta potties since everyone has one main mission before they begin a 250-mile race, and that is to start it as light as possible. So once I saw that line, I decided not ready to wait in that. I need to go back, get all my gear situated, and have some coffee. Luckily, the night before, for the first time of any race, my gear was not scattered everywhere. I didn't have to fill my backpack. It was already filled. It was sitting on the steering wheel, ready to go. I had another shopping bag with all the clothes I was going to wear, so I just put those on and I was dialed. I've never been ready this quick for a race ever. Even an FKT and stuff. I'm always fiddling with something. I'm not the most organized person. I'm a big bin guy. That's what someone told me once. Big bin energy. I like to throw everything that I'm going to possibly need in a big old plastic bin. Then I know it's there. I just got to fish it out along the way. So it's like 4:05, 4:10 now, and I go into my aunt and Jenny. They're the crew. They're called the Ants in the Cocodona world. Go into their van, and there's a coffee ready. Have that. Have a bagel and cream cheese. And I'm starting to get antsy. It's maybe 4:20 right now, and I saw that line being really long, so put on the socks and shoes. I'm all ready. And then I go over to investigate that line. I have to use the bathroom. I tell the van I'm just going to go over early, get everything situated, get over there, find out bathroom line is really short. That is a very, very good thing. But the line that's really long is the gear check, and the tracker line. So they throw a tracker on you for these races so they can make sure you're not in trouble or I guess rescue you if something goes wrong. But unfortunately, this line, it's like a 1/4 mile long. So with anxiety spiking, exactly what you want to have to start a race, I walk and stand in the back of the line and it is moving slowly. Soon it's 4:40, 4:45, 4:50, still like 100 yards from the start. The race is supposed to start at 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. I'm seeing people line up. So slowly moving up and eventually I get my tracker. It's like 4:57 and I hurry over to the start line trying to get up near the front where I want to be, and it's like 4:59. Then we all hear something go over the loudspeaker, but we can't decipher what it is. So we're still kind of thinking we're going to start at 5 a.m. But then we don't. Then it's like 5:01, it's creeping by. We're just like standing there. There's music going. We have no idea when this thing's going to start. We're like ready. My watch is already ready to hit the start. It's even found the GPS and everything, so I can track this whole thing to get all those stats on Strava. But we're just waiting. We don't even know. And then over the loudspeaker, a little louder on the loudspeaker, we hear the race director say, Eli Webby. Apologies to his last name. Who even knows? But he's the guy standing next to me, and he raises his hand, and they bring over his tracker. So he didn't even have to stand in the line. He got to skip all that anxiety, and they brought his tracker right to him. A couple seconds later, they say go, and we're off. It's like 100 yards to the start of the trail, and you better believe I had a 100-yard plan in the middle of a 250-mile race. My plan was to at least get near the front, stay there, so that on the single track, when it's a lot harder to pass people, that I'm kind of right where I want to be. So get up there, and we're moving. I sink right in behind Joe McConaughey. By this point, with that 10 or so minutes of grace, we probably started at 5:10. Don't really need headlamps anymore, so me and Joe are just kind of catching up. Mr. Stringbean himself, we're slowly climbing up the hill. It's going to be a pretty tame section to the first aid station. I have like 6 empty bottles in my pack and 2 full ones. My goal is to drink the 2 full ones, so drink a full liter before I get to that aid station, and then fill everything up, because from there it's 25 miles and 10,000 feet of gain to the next one. So we're moving along. It's a pretty rugged trail. It just goes up a dry creek bed, and everyone is, chatting a little bit as the sun comes up. We all get a little livelier. It's really not feeling like a race because we have days left to go. We're not really worried about how everyone's doing. We're just shuffling along. We get to the smoother parts and some trail and just running along near Mika Thews is out there, and we're just chatting our way. And then we come around the corner, hit the first aid station, and all hell breaks loose. Everyone has liters upon liters to fill. I just throw my pack on the ground and grab my 6 empty bottles and the ones I'd been drinking, and just one after another start filling them. I already had measured the scratch, which is like the calories that go in the water, and there's some salt in there, into the bottle. So all I got to do is top them off with water. And that's what we're doing. That first aid station volunteers have these like 25-gallon jugs of water, and they're just pouring them into everyone's, whether it's a bladder or I had all bottles. I went with all bottles just so it was easier to measure how much I was drinking along the way, but just one after another filling them up. And it's just like a mad dash to get your bottles filled, which is pretty funny considering we have about 243 miles to go. So get that done, and then begins a road section, and we're kind of off into the middle of nowhere. This is the crux of the whole thing. This is where it's going to be hot and difficult, but we're all just moving at that forever pace, which is the one, you work on in training, and you just hope that that's the pace you can actually move forever when you do a 250-mile race. Because unlike things like a marathon, where you could go out and run a marathon and make sure you can do that distance before you do it, a 250 is a little different. You can only train so much. And I think my biggest week was 106 miles with a lot of 90-mile weeks, and everyone else is the same. But we're finally in the thick of this thing. It's maybe hour 2 and the sun's coming up. It's getting a little hotter, but the forecast is a lot cooler, and we're still just all friends out there. I'm chatting with guys like Joe Corcione, Kevin Goldberg, and Arlen Glick is around. If these names mean nothing to you, that's okay, because they're all just names, and we're all just out there doing this for fun. We've used our whole week. It's a Monday, and we're going to be moving through the majority of the week, and even when we're done, we're going to be useless. So who cares? We're all dumb decision makers. So this climb, it's pretty rugged, like a lot of rocks, very uphill, and the elevation just builds on itself. It's that vert that you can tell you're going uphill. It's definitely hiking. You're not really running, but it's not too taxing either. It's just the totality of the section that really gets you. There's some ups and downs, and then there's some people with the live stream around. You'll like come around a corner, and then bam, there's a guy with a little iPhone on a gimbal, and apparently they're broadcasting it to the world. And this year, apparently like 6,000 people were watching. So it's always interesting. You gotta watch what you're saying out there. So work through this section pretty good. It never gets hot, and I keep noticing I have splits because it's the fourth year I've done it. That every couple miles or every hour, I'm looking at my splits and I'm just getting further and further ahead of where I projected myself. And I'm not in first. I'm not really in that first group, maybe the second or third group, but we're just going so fast. And that's starting to wear on me where I'm just wondering, is this a bad idea? And so as the miles tick by, I just sink into running with Mika Thews. We both run for Janji, so Janji shout out, boom. And we're having a pretty good time with just chatting, talking about other 200s, other races, FKTs we've done, sort of our strategy for this guy, what we're working with. Other people are around and we're chatting, and Mika takes a fall. Unfortunately, her knee's already bloody, but gets back up and we're just hoofing it along. It doesn't even feel like a race. We just are knocking out the miles soon. We've covered 20 miles and get to the first, there's like a water refill section. I just topped off like one water because I was thinking the water would be cooler that they had than mine that had been roasting on my back in the sun. And it seemed to work pretty good. The water was cooler. It was a good idea to fill that up. Got a little refreshing sip of goodness, and then just kept charging. Saw some, the photographers out there. You are never alone in these things until you're completely alone, which I guess comes later. So really pretty uneventful first 33 miles. Get to the aid station at Lane Mountain, come on in, and I have maybe a half a bottle of water, so like a quarter liter left, and I grabbed one slice of watermelon from the Lane Mountain aid station. I'm there like 30 minutes faster than I expect to be, and I still don't need anything. I don't take any time. It's pretty much all downhill to Crown King, so I just grabbed that watermelon wedge and just jog down, dropping really good miles. It's that perfect grade to jog down. It's a road. And come into Crown King, there's my crew. There's a few other runners set up, but they're all sitting in the sun. And it's like, well, I am from Montana. We do not do sun in May. So I tell them that. We bring the chair into the shade and just refill everything. They give me this massive ice bandana packed with ice, which was part of my plan, and then get out of there really quick. The whole plan for this whole race was I could cut down a lot of time if taking aid station stops and maybe cutting them in half from previous years. So pack was already packed. I switched packs there because I just planned to use my other pack and it was already filled. So it was a no-brainer. And then just started hiking. There's a pretty maybe 2-mile hill out from Crown King. The point of this ice bandana was I was going to put it on everything. It was just like icing down my body. 1 second it's on my neck. The next second it's on my chest, then my hands, then back of my neck. I'm throwing some ice down the back of my shirt. It's maybe low 80s and it's cool for a lot of people, but for Montana, it is hot. So I'm just making use of this ice, stay as cool as possible, and then hit the runnable section on the Sentinel Highway. It's pretty smooth, just very runnable. Even the hills are gentle and runnable and covering pretty good ground. Mika catches up around here and we just jog and chat some more. Everything's going really good. And then that's when I start getting some sharp pain shooting up my legs, starting right at my Achilles, which is why I was at the doctor. And a thing called PT may be in my future. PSA, do your PT exercises. They actually work, just from experience on my own. Anyways, I'm moving along this highway towards Arrastra Creek. It's a long section. It's pretty hard because you come off the crux of the entire race is into Crown King, and then you have this long 17-mile section. So you see your crew at Crown King, and you don't see them again until like mile 78. So in nearly 80 miles, you only see them twice. So since I only spent 5 or 6 minutes with them at Crown King, that means that I'm barely seeing them for the entire first day. But splits are still way ahead. I get to the Arrastra Creek aid station. I text my friend Sam, Dr. Sam, the PT, and say, well, there seems to be some Achilles issues coming up. I know by the time I need to do something, it'll probably be darker tonight. So how should I tape this? I see this being an issue for the whole way, but I'm not going to consider dropping or anything because this is the A race and we're just going to tape this sucker up and get on with it. So I took a little bit of time at that aid station, had some Coke, let the heart rate drop, and just know that I move really well at night and the cooler temperatures are coming. So any time spent down during the day is really only going to aid in how well I do during the race. From there, people are really spread out. Maybe I'm around top 10 or something. It doesn't matter. It's still 200 miles left in the race. I'm just worried about this Achilles thing. Every hill that I climb, shooting pain. I should have taped at that aid station, but I'm a stubborn person coming from a through hiking and FKT background, and you just deal with things yourself on the fly. And I still struggle to make good use of aid stations. Taping up there may have saved me a lot later down the road, but anyways, didn't do that. So continued moving forward. And the climb up to Camp Kippa, that was rough. That's where it really hit. I'm trying to make up time. I'm trying to keep on the pace I want to keep on, keep up with the leaders, but my heel just screams as I'm climbing. It's that flexion of having to bend your foot further back to climb up a hill versus the flats or downs. And that's where it's really hurting. Soon I'm just walking the downs, and Jake Jackson even made the point and he goes, "Oh, I guess now we're hiking the downs and running the ups." And it's like, nope, I am running none of it right now. I'm feeling awful. One runner actually gave me a couple Advil. Those seemed to work. And then I got into Camp Kippa and was feeling pretty rough. Not the best, but good enough considering I've gone like 60 miles, and I maybe drink a little bit of Coca-Cola, put a bag of chips in my pocket, and it's one of those feelings like, oh, maybe if I use the bathroom, I'll feel better. So this is when I do my first major awesome Cocodona moment. I walk in. That was a burp. Excuse me. Well, don't worry about the rest of this podcast because they are mowing the yard outside my house. Okay, I think the lawnmower is gone. So we're at Camp Kippa, and this is when the most Cocodona experience my 4 years happened. So I have some Coke. I'm waiting there, and then I decide that I'm going to feel better if I go to the bathroom. So I walk in the bathroom, immediately see the toilet and projectile vomit all up in that thing. Got rid of everything and immediately feel great, but I still have to use the bathroom. So I turn around, take care of business that way, and I have just emptied everything, lost weight, leave there, jog on up the trail, and I'm moving okay. I once again did not tape my Achilles. It needed it, but I kind of forgot in the midst of pooping and puking. So moving down the trail, get to the next aid station. I think it's called like Camp Wamatochik or something like that. I don't know. I don't have anything in front of me. This is just freewheeling and dealing here. So I get there, and I texted Allison about and Sam on how to tape this thing, and that the plan was to tape it here, but I was going to keep it on the down low and maybe slowly bring in the crew and stuff into the idea that my Achilles is not so good. But while keeping it on the DL, I walk in here and I ask if there's a medic. They say no, but this one guy says, "But don't worry, I'm a retired ski patroller." Good enough for me. So I open up my phone, and Sam had made this video of him taping his mom's Achilles because he's on vacation with his mom right now. So he illustrated in this video. So I showed this ski patroller, retired ski patroller, I believe, the video, and he says he can do it. So I pull off my sock, he tapes it up, and in the background, I see on the TV, they've switched to the live stream of my Achilles getting taped. So as this race goes, it was quickly not on the down low anymore. Everyone who was watching the live stream at 9 p.m. or whatever on Monday, May 6th, was witness to I'm having Achilles problems. So taped up, pretty tight, good to go. It's maybe 8 or 9 miles into Prescott, Arizona from here. Was able to run it pretty good. Everything felt good. The trails were smooth. I was actually flying on this section. I finally had taken some pressure off the Achilles. things were good. I didn't need to push this hard, but I really wanted to see the crew and get a pacer. So flew in there, got in there, sat down quickly. I added a little bit more tape around it just to tighten it up so that things weren't moving too much as we continued. And then I picked up Calvin, my first pacer, and we were off. It was really smooth around Prescott, off Whiskey Row there. Iconic. That place is pretty cool. Might even consider living there one day. But it's a really smooth section, just bunch of roads, stuff like that. And then you hit the granite dells, and they're, as the name would suggest, they are actually granite. So they're like granite mounds and rocks, and you're going around. There's this lake. It's really hard to navigate. We both had our phones out the whole time, but it's only a couple miles of working through and across this big granite rock. And then you get out the other side and it's smooth once again. And we're running, we're feeling good, get into Iron King. And this is when volunteers are there, they're up at night and trying to get you anything you need. But, you know, a lot of the front of the pack runners, we've done this kind of thing before. We know exactly what we need, and it's usually not centered around the aid stations too much. So really, I think I just grabbed like a bag of chips and we kept on pushing. But this is where this section gets really dumb. So have you ever been in like a cow pasture and there's like holes in the ground, and it's Arizona, so everything's pokey. There's like scorpions scurrying all around and stuff like that. So we're crossing this cow pasture, cow field. There's like flags, but you know, they're the types of cows that enjoy eating the flags. So it's pretty hard to cross that thing. Both once again got our phones out, checking. We cross under this really cool tunnel. It's like 6 feet tall and I'm 6'2". So I have to bend my head a little bit, but get under there. It's a nice break from the wind. It's nice and cold out, but it's that good cold that keeps you alert. And we just keep on trucking, get into the Satisfy aid station. Satisfy is like this brand that I like to equate it to the ripped jeans fad in the 90s. Like all their stuff is just about the fad and what's going to elicit people just wanting to have it. Some of their shirts are made pre-hold, so they got holes all the way in them. They call it like Moth Tech, but take it or leave it. Anyways, got there. Usually last year they had a really nice aid station with a bunch of food. This time it's maybe midnight. I don't know. Time is elusive at this moment in time. Back at that moment in time, not this current one. But they had really nothing substantial that I was that into. So I just had like a bowl of soup, retaped my Achilles again. This is going to be an issue. Threw on some warmer clothes, threw on the Tiger shirt, and you know, running for John G. I had to make my mark. So they got some photos of my hat that I love. It says "Make America Eclipse Again." We made those hats back for the eclipse in 2017, and of my Tiger sweatshirt. So we got a John G. athlete on the Satisfy Instagram page. Boom. And from then it's this long section where you cross to Mingus, but once again, planned it perfectly. There was this other group, this runner and his pacer, about 200 yards ahead, and we could see their headlamps. So me and Allison, she switched into pacing at this moment. We didn't even have to worry about any of the navigation. We just followed their line across and watched them make a mistake or two, but we were able to pick up on when they found the right route, and we never really made any mistakes on that whole section. It was pretty perfect. And then we got to the Mingus climb, sun's rising, it's beautiful out, and just climb up the trail. It's less steep than a lot of the trails we train on in Bozeman, so it was really pleasant. We flew up that thing, hit the road at the top, ran down all the way into Mingus. It's like be like almost like a summer camp, like little feel once you get there, and got there. And this is when I made my first real mistake. So changed everything, used the bathroom again, which is a good sign because I'm definitely eating enough, and sunscreen, some, I want to call it summer clothing, but warm, cool. Gosh, I keep messing this up. Warm weather clothing is to stay cool. So I guess I had my warm weather clothing on. So cool clothing, not very much clothing, but I threw on socks after taping my Achilles again. The socks were like Montana socks that I would wear to run out here. They work really good, toe socks and everything, but they're too thick. And over the next section with Emily, my feet sweat a lot. But anyways, we left Mingus. You go up the road for a little bit and then you turn off onto a trail. and the drone's following us. Live stream is showing us once again, and we take a wrong turn and everyone sees it. We're going down the wrong way and only like 100 yards, and I realize it and we go back, but everyone watching, all I guess 6,000 people at some point, saw us going the wrong way. Oh well, throw that behind us, get to the downhill. It's like that downhill, you never get into it. There's turtle rocks everywhere. That's what someone told me in Pennsylvania they're called. They're like turtle shells where ankle breakers, really hard to stay on your feet. But we get down through this section as best we can, rounding. It's like 17 miles. It's pretty mindless though, easy to follow, but not fast, smooth downhill like you want. And then we get about 2 miles from the road that leads into Jerome. And sitting on the side of the trail, there's 3 ladies out of nowhere. And they're like, "Oh, are you Jeff Carmeyer?" And it's like, yeah, I don't ever know what to say in this situation other than the truth. So that's what I said. I did indeed confirm. And one of the ladies, I believe she said her name was Ingrid, was like, "Oh, you're the reason I'm a trail runner. I'm running the Eldon Crest 38 mile on Friday." And it's like, oh, that's really cool and really nice. But then kind of wondering a little bit and not being the best at conversations, which obviously is why I have a podcast. I don't know what to say from there. So it's just like, all right, good luck. I'm going to keep on going now. So the awkward ending to a conversation, which is basically a staple of my life. We make it down to the road, kind of jog it in. Feet are feeling very torn up, and get into Jerome and immediately take off those socks. Bad idea. Soak the feet a little bit. And at this point, decide to change into some shoes that have a little higher stack height and more drop so that there's slightly less pressure on the Achilles. Tape up again, eat some stuff, throw some ice on my back, and 5 feet out of the aid station, it's like, nope, this ain't going to work. There's shooting pain in my Achilles, and I should know this will not be good for 8 miles. So go back, sit back down, and we should redo the tape job. I think this is the biggest lesson from 200s and FKTs that I've learned is if you notice something bothering you, like at that moment, you can fix it. The move is just to fix it. So that's what we did, taped up. And then with Calvin, jog on, you jog through town, and then you go through this like 1/4 mile section that's straight down. It's, I guess you would call it a road, but there's glass everywhere. The rocks are loose. It's like a garbage pit, but it's the only way to connect down. So it's really slow moving. I think at that area, that's where Calvin kicked a cactus last year, actually. So it is rough. We drop down, you hit like this creek bed, kind of, you run along the trails under this, I don't know, it's like a gas line, and then you hit a road. And from there, you run right through town. And that's what we did. A lady waved at me from her front yard. We flew through town, crossed the Verdi River, which is like 2 or 3 feet deep, but pretty refreshing because it's getting to the hot part of the day. Wind around and into Dead Horse Ranch, where the amazing was waiting. My aunt and Jenny, but everyone calls them the ants, out on the Cocodona course, and they often wear tiger leggings, and it's pretty awesome. We have the good energy on my crew, which is really key when you're going so far. But they'd got otter pops. So had a few of those, had a root beer, went to the bathroom again, felt great after going another time. And then, let's see, this Dead Horse picked up Allison and we trekked on. This was the hot section. It's later in the day. It's not hot for everyone else, but you know, Montana, it's like 85 or 80. Not too much wind and kind of a winding road, but the views are awesome. You can see all the way up to Mingus Mountain where you've come from, Jerome, and kind of ahead towards where Sedona is going to be. So we make quick work of the section until it's the last 2 miles. And in that, like that last 2 miles is always my nemesis. Last year, I remember seeing like hallucinating chicken feet sticking out of the ground and a pirate ship just beached on the side. And it was pretty weird last year. This year, luckily, my faculty's about me. It's still daylight, but I started getting like hot flashes. My skin kept getting hotter and hotter, and I was just burning up. I was trying to run, but things were just feeling so rough and depleting. So Allison texted ahead and said I was going to take a cold shower. Got there, took a cold shower, but that's when my body just shut down. Shivers everywhere. I took a cold shower, was immediately cooled off. It felt good, but then shivering. I had to throw on so many clothes, like blankets and everything to warm up. We did like a quick reset of everything, shoes back on, and then started going with Emily. Next stop, Sedona. I'm thinking at this point, I can just push through everything and not sleep. Well, that worked. We covered the first 6 or so miles to the water station and then 8 more to go. Climbed up this long, long climb that's kind of brutal and relentless. It's dark out, not feeling great. I told Emily, don't let me sit down. It's going to be a lot harder to get started with this Achilles thing. But when she wasn't looking, I sat down. Of course I did. It's like the one moment I took the easy break. It was only for 10 seconds. I counted to 10 and then I was back up moving, but I was feeling it. I was starting to feel tired, groggy. I was not moving at the pace. I always like to evaluate, am I moving at a pace efficient enough to keep moving or should I be sleeping? And at this moment, I'm starting to dip into that pace where I should be sleeping, but it's only 2 or 3 miles into Sedona. So we push on, we get to the road. It's 2 miles from there. And we're like, I'm wanting to run this road, but Achilles is screaming, I'm dead. It feels like I just got shot in the back of the heel. It's not a great feeling. And then as we're a mile from the aid station, here come the cameras. The live stream crew comes out and they're just filming. And I don't know if the sound is on or not. And I'm just saying anything and everything because now we're about 46 hours into the race. And luckily, they assured me the sound was not going through on our end. So that's a relief. I think it was probably like midnight or something anyways. So hopefully not many people were watching, even if the sound was going through. I was just complaining, not stuff I like to do on the live stream. Got to always be trying to have fun. So they're filming. I'm like hobbling up there. I'm ready to sleep. The plan is already to sleep for 15 minutes, but I can see the crew. I can also see a hopscotch drawn in chalk on the ground. My motto is always got to have fun first. That's why you do these things. So quickly on just a destroyed Achilles, I do the hopscotch real quick, just like I need to. Move on, lay immediately down on the cot, pass out for 15 minutes. It was glorious. Wake up, ready to go. There's a burger there, like a black bean burger. Take about half that and then ready to go. Me and Calvin get up. Takes me 10 or so minutes to get that Achilles warmed up by walking and then can pull 10, 11, 12-minute jog down to Oak Creek, get there. And this is when I know it's going to happen again. That cold water is really going to shut everything down. But I just crossed it immediately. Calvin, I think, was pulling his pants up so they wouldn't get wet. It's about 3 feet, but they have a line you can hold on to, a hand line to get across to keep your balance as you're moving through this somewhat swift water. Get to the other side and my leg is pretty numb. That's not good for having an injury that only works when it's warmed up. And this is when the big Kasner climb happens. It's kind of a relentless climb on rocks that move as they shift. I usually enjoy the climb. This time climbing is hurting a lot, but I have this climb and then basically just the Eldon climb. So if I can get through this, there's really only one more substantial climb, and those are the things that hurt my Achilles the most. So we push through, we make it to the top. I'm grunting with every step. It's like, oh, every time I'm stepping down, but made it up there. And then there's this long road to the aid station. And this is when we're both losing it. We're tired. It's like 3 a.m. And in my mind, it's like, if we can just make it to 5 a.m., then it's daylight and I can work with that. Everything feels better when it's daylight. So we're doing everything we can. We're like screaming, like, everything to just try to get the adrenaline going, to stay lively and stuff. We're talking about the NBA. He's a big NBA basketball fan too. And we're just trying to name rosters, people in the past. We're just talking about anything and everything to try to get through the night. There's moments where I'm like sleepwalking and everything. And then as we get closer to the aid station, it's one of those things where it's like, it should be any minute here. And we just keep pushing. And eventually we just crack. And we're like, screw aid stations. It'd be so much easier if we just did this unsupported. Let's just like skip this one and not do any aid stations for the rest of it. So we just let our negativity spiral and had fun with it. And that's kind of how you just repurpose that negative energy into having a good time out there still. So we made the most of it. We got into the aid station maybe 4:30, know that it's going to get light around 5. So have the plan to take 10 or 15 minutes of just decompress, eat. I ate some dry noodles because I didn't want any sauce or anything, but I wanted something a little more substantial in my stomach. So had that there and then just pushed on with Allison, and we made really quick work of that next section. It's super flat and boring. It's in the trees, but and ran the whole thing, but I just was like, I am in a terrible mood. I need an attitude adjustment. Things are really hard out here. And she's just like laughing the whole time and videoing it. And I think at some point she was texting the crew, and I said, "What, are you telling everyone that I have a bad attitude?" And she's like, "No, do you want me to?" And I just said, "I don't care. I have a bad attitude. If they want to know it, they can." So it was pretty funny. That section, just letting it all out there, being just ridiculous and dramatic as you can be in a 200. But then we get to Munns Park, the next aid station. This is where I made my really only major mistake with an aid station. Is I was feeling good. We ran really well. And instead of taking the 5 minutes to collect myself, have some more caffeine, maybe even a Red Bull or more of a BLT, I just I just wanted to keep going. So I didn't take care of myself and started this next section with Emily. And it's a hard section. It's pretty relentless. Uh, it's flat, but you're just in the trees and you don't see anything. So without having really anything in me to help prop me up with artificial uppers like caffeine or whatever's in that battery acid Red Bull. Hey, Red Bull, sponsor me. Um, yeah, we just had a tough time. I started hallucinating. I was seeing loggers everywhere on the side of the trail and in the trees. I was seeing stick figures on the tree branches. At one point, we called my sister just to like have someone external to talk to try to pull me out of it. But I just could not fight through it. I took like a 1 minute nap at one point, and then we finally started doing a run walk protocol that worked for a while, but it's just so painful on my leg. And we got to Kelly Canyon. There was this massive tractor, but with a massive tractor comes a little bit of shade. So, like under the bucket, I just told Emily, I'm laying down. If you just refill my bottles and we'll go, give me 1 minute to nap. So that's literally what I did, a 1 minute power nap there. And we kept going to Fort Tuthill. I was just losing my mind. That 1 minute nap was probably not substantial. 5 minutes might have made us move quicker, but it's daylight and it's so hard to want to waste too much time sleeping during the daylight. We moved through, climbed that last climb up Fort Tuthill, and just really having a tough time of it, hobbled in, limped into Fort Tuthill. And the hard thing is, like, after Fort Tuthill to Walnut Canyons is a section that's 20 miles long, but it's like all in the trees. So it feels like it never changes. And 20-mile section is pretty hard at this moment. I think my crew was thinking I was going to sleep there. And the volunteer or the aid station person who comes up and makes sure you're fit to continue comes up and is like, "Well, I can't give you Advil, but I suggest you take some if you have some for your Achilles. And I'd suggest retaping everything right here." And then she gave her whole spiel. And I was like, "Okay, I don't need any Advil and I'm not going to retape. Let's go, Calvin." And so we both just left the aid station then. I think I drank a Red Bull. No. I drank a yerba mate on the way out, just trying to get some other kind of energy. I was a little tired of carbonated beverages then, down that thing. And yeah, we just started moving. Like we moved pretty good through half of it. I'd say like 12-minute mile. That's the most that my body could really handle. And that's why our aid station strategy was all about efficiency. And the only issues I made were when I tried to make myself too efficient and didn't take the time to take care of myself there. But we knocked off a good 2/3 of that section before Mika came flying by and into the next aid station. And we got there a little bit after her. It was a tough slog, kind of the run walk thing. And I was having a hard time, put on every podcast I could think of, but just was getting so tired. But luckily, once you get to that Walnut aid station, it's the last time you're going to see the crew before the end, and you just know you can do it. All that waits is the Eldon climb. I get there, and Mika's there. Mike, her partner's taking care of her, and all the whole race we'd been giving her and her crew different stuff because she's the John G team as well and a friend, and so we'd given her some scratch or whatever they happened to need, and he'd given us sorbet at that moment. And Allison offered it to me, and you better believe I ate some of that. It was so, so good. Wow. I downed like half the thing of sorbet, probably like 300 or 400 calories. It was perfect. And drank a Red Bull on the way out of that thing too. I drank so much Red Bull this race. Red Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull. I just need some more Red Bull, Red Bull. And so we walked out of there, let the Achilles loosen up a little, and then we basically jogged all the way to the base of Eldon. And you get to the base and it slowly begins to climb. It's pretty smooth, walking good. And then the real climbing starts. And there's like steps up that are 2 or 3 feet, rocks kind of scattered. It's fairly technical and steep climbing. You gain a couple thousand feet in a couple miles. And it's dark at this point, and this is when I just lost it. My head disappeared. I had nothing. Allison thought I was sleepwalking. I thought I was seeing all the rocks around us as loaves of bread. Everything was just a loaf of bread everywhere as we're slowly climbing. And it's really slow. It's bad. All like the time goals that I'd had coming out of Walnut that we talked about are kind of getting thrown out the window because of how slow I'm moving. But then, as in all 200s and FKTs, something drastic happened that really changed everything. My nose started bleeding like profusely, a lot. It'd been bleeding some up to this point, but it just started like pouring out. That woke me up, along with my headlamp started flashing the low battery sign, and that jolted me into paying attention. I immediately became lucid. I had adrenaline pumping. I was like, okay, I have to change my headlamp, and I got to just like wipe my nose. And I just gave up and started using my John G shirt, another plug, John G Sun shirt, which is now covered in blood, more and more blood, but not a big deal because now I'm focused on fixing, and that pulls me out of this bread-filled fantasy land that I've been climbing through. And so we power to the top, like relentless forward motion, moved really well, got to the top, jogged down the road a little bit, and you get to the aid station, and in like the mist, I see this figure in a panda outfit. Get a little closer, and it's Pete Mortimer, who's a friend and really nice guy, and he runs that aid station up there. But imagine just being like sleep deprived. You've slept 20 minutes over the past, at this point, 66 hours, and you see a panda on top of a mountain. Also, during that Eldon climb, at one point I was so tired, I asked Allison if I was pacing her in a race or if she was pacing me. And I asked her which mountain we were even climbing. I couldn't even figure out what we were doing out there. And then she told me, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm in a race. I'm in Cocodona. I got to like keep moving. And so that was a little bit before all the blood, sweat, and tears. So see the panda, get towards the aid station, and Allison is like, you go ahead, give me your collapsible cup. I'll fill it with one with Coke and one with water. So she did, but I just took off like speed of light, like 10-minute miles. Okay, that's not that fast, but moving pretty good down the road. And Allison gets it, and she's chasing me down with a water in one hand and a Coke in the other, trying not to spill while trying to catch up to me running down this road like a bat out of hell who's lost his mind. She catches up to me, and everything we just talked about, how it's going to wash my mouth out to get the blood out with the water, and then sip some Coke just to have a little bit of caffeine going through for the last 8 miles. She hands me the Coke. I swig it around to wash my mouth out and spit it out. And then I poured the rest of the Coke out, and then she handed me the water, and I didn't even take a sip. I just immediately dumped it on the ground as if I was like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum. So that was very helpful and kind that she got that for me, but I sure did not value the act very much. So we just run down this road. The road turns off into a trail. I'm getting frustrated. A helicopter flies over, and I go, is this the loudest town in America? Just because, I don't know, it's like midnight and loud sounds of helicopters and everything. Every sound is frustrating me. I'm a pretty sound sensitive guy anyways. So we turn off onto a trail, and I apparently tell her to run like frustratingly far ahead because it'll just spur me to run faster. And it did. I pushed further. We got to Buffalo Park through everything. And Shad, who's from Bozeman, Helena area, he is the one on the camera live streaming my finish. We hit the road. I'm hobbling. I can't do much more than a 13-minute mile at this point, but there's only a mile left. climb up past San Francisco, turn left on Beaver, followed all the way down. Calvin and Emily join. We turn left on Birch and then fly into the finish at a very slow pace. And I just collapse. I gave everything to that race. I was so depleted. My leg hurt. I just was ready to cry with how much pain had been for 200 miles. And then as I slowly climb up into a chair, there's this gun uh, in a holster like 2 feet from my head. I look up and it looks like a police officer, and I just can't figure out what's going on. And he asked me, "So is it the elevation that got to you?" And I'm just thinking, what is he talking about? And I just out loud I said no, because it's not the elevation. I live at 5,000 feet. I don't think the elevation has anything to do with it. I just ran 250 miles. I can't really even wrap my head around if he's real or not. Turns out he was an Arizona Ranger, just looking back through the photos. And I just was so weirded out by what is even happening. And after just like 2 or 3 minutes, Allison is like, all right, let's go home and go to sleep. And so they walked me over to the car, threw me in the back seat. Somehow my watch got stopped. Somehow a belt buckle for Cocodona ended up in my pocket, and we went home. I somehow managed to take a quick shower because I was just covered in blood and went to sleep. And that was Cocodona. That is Cocodona 2024. I think the time was around 68 hours and 50 minutes or so. It was under the old course record, but I got sixth place because 6 of us got under the old course record. It was a very fast field. 5 other pros beat me. It was just so fast, but that's what's so fun. The competitive field pushed everyone to be faster and a better version of themselves. And while I had aspirations and hopes of winning, and maybe someday I will, it was just a fulfilling race to be able to push and dig so deep and fight through an injury because I just cared so much about getting to the finish line no matter what it was going to take. And what it really took was everything that my pacers and crew had to offer, and efficient aid station stops and about 20 minutes of sleep. So, and now I guess the aftermath is totally mixed feelings. It's just so weird to get close to the splits and the time and the effort that you want, but the end result of how you placed is a little bit different. So that's always tough and weird feeling, but overall, I can't really think back on it and come up with how I would have done different given the circumstances and things I couldn't control. So just a really cool race is always to be a part of, and got to stick around for a few days, see the last finisher finish, be at the finish line as much as possible, cheering people in, because those people near the back of the pack, they're out there for 5 days. I was only out there for, I guess, like a little under 3 days. And it's so long to be working towards a goal that it was fun to get to cheer them in and watch the emotions and everything. And man, what an experience. Aravaipa does such a good job putting it on. But the real thing that I did on the drive back to Montana is I used AI to recreate some of the images, or I guess it would be just create, because they were only created in my mind before, but create the images in real life of what my hallucinations were. It's been pretty fun to use AI technology for that. So I think, I guess final parting words are like, if you're a thru hiker, you can totally do something like a 200, or even at the same event, they have what's called Sedona Canyons 125, which is 125 miles, but it's a 70-hour cutoff. So if you can hike 40 miles a day, 43 miles a day, I believe it would be, then you can finish a 100-miler. And that's so cool that it's so approachable. One family, even of thru hikers, the Chisholms, the 17-year-old, the 18-year-old, and the mom all finished the Cocodona 250. So pretty cool to see more thru hikers getting into this and just use that efficiency and relentless forward progress to knock off such a big goal like this. Well, I don't know if there were jokes or not in there, and that was a bit of a ramble with a little break to let the lawnmower die down, but that is the Cocodona Chronicles of Narnia, Cocodona 250 2024. Will I be back next year? I don't know. I can't answer that. I just got back from the doctor, got some PT in the future, and get back to running and just decompress after such high highs, low lows, and middles. So to everyone else out there, and any questions you got, you can always drop them below, DM me. But I'm looking for those 5-star reviews. I'm looking for comments. I'm looking for subscribers, and I think that's it for this episode. All right, stay elite, my friends.